Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to Money in the Morning. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. This is where we get together every morning. We practice the art of economic elevation. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's feeling elevated today. I hope you're feeling black and proud and all the other good things. And I know that I am. I know that I'm feeling good. I got up this morning, I took a little girl to school and we had a good conversation. And we had a conversation about money that I thought would be an interesting sort of topic for us to hit on today. And it actually, I get my inspiration for what to talk about or what to cover in class literally based on life. Life is nothing more than a big textbook. And so the textbook opened up and it gave me a concept or a thought or two that I wanted to share with you. So anyway, I hope everybody's doing good and feeling great. I know I am. I am going to travel pretty soon, and I'm getting ready for the Family Conference that's going to be this weekend. It's virtual, and everybody in here can come for free. So if you care about the Black family and the Black community, and you want to improve your family and build legacy and connect and break generational curses, you can go to blackfamilyconference.com, blackfamilyconference.com. All right. So I'm sending out the text right now to start our class. And also, I have something else I want to share with you all. I'd sent you all like this link for different ways to buy gold. And one of the things that someone informed me of is that for some of you, you weren't able to actually get that list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give it to you directly inside the chat. I think that gold is kind of an enigma right now because the price of gold keeps going up, 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 and nobody really understands exactly why. Because it's not sort of the usual conditions of financial markets have kind of shifted over time, and the economy's doing some kind of weird stuff. Maybe you can chalk it up to the Trump tariffs and just weird economic policy, like the government shutdown, and just sort of the ghettoization of America. America has become a big ghetto for the most part, and the reality is, whether you're Democrat or Republican, I think you might agree with me that things are a little more chaotic than they have been before. Now, have I heard about the brother making gasoline out of plastic? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I want to look into that, and I'm really happy about that. And I hope that he can monetize that. I hope he makes $1 trillion. I think that that's amazing. I think it's beautiful. And what also I think about too is when I see one extraordinary black person, I always say, gosh, I bet you there's a million other young people like him. How do we find the other million, right? I think the one that we see is exciting. It's inspirational. It's a big deal. But here's the thing: to compete as a community economically, you need entire systems. You should be studying when you have one success story, like you have one person that succeeds, or you have one school that figures it out and they can educate black boys at a high level or black girls at a high level. What you want to do is you want to systematize that, right? You celebrate the one-off success for sure, but you don't. I think that we don't want to get into the point where we get into so much hero worship that we become stagnant and forget the rest of the assignment. Do you get what I'm saying? The rest of the assignment is not just to sit back and say, "Oh my God, remember that guy? Remember that one black guy who did something amazing? He turned plastic into gasoline. Well, that was so awesome. Gosh, I wish we had more like that." No, what you do is you mass produce that. What you do is you look at that as that is part of the serum. That is the antidote to black strugglenomics, right? And what you do is you say, okay, how did you create a young man like that? Where did he come from? Who raised him? What did his parents teach him when he was a baby? Like, what school did he go to? What kind of education did he get? Do you understand? Like, what you do is you duplicate. There we go. You mass produce it the same way Henry Ford. Henry Ford didn't become rich from making one automobile, right? Henry Ford did not become rich from making one car. Henry Ford became rich because he made millions of cars. Do you understand? Right? So the thing about it is that I think that we have to be thoughtful and careful about how we sort of look at these one-off successes and really see them for what they are. What they are is they are clues. They're clues to how you can do things at a higher level. They're clues for what you want to mass produce in the next generation. Because we're very good at mass producing, music and sports and stuff like that, and all that's fine. All that stuff is good. But are we mass producing scientists? Are we mass producing business owners, business developers? Are we mass producing investors? That's what the goal is, all right? So one successful black person is beautiful. A million successful black people is power. One successful black person is inspirational. A million successful black people is a movement. Do you follow me? Do you get what I'm saying? Right? Black leadership is not one guy, two people, a King Kong consciousness, alpha male, I'm the leader, look at me, I'm the greatest, everybody give me your attention. That is not black leadership. Black leadership is when the whole hood is elevating, when the floor is rising, so everybody standing on that surface is going up. When the rising tide is really lifting all boats. I do agree. I do agree with my brother Barack Obama. I think was probably the smartest president we ever had. I love the way he carried himself as a human being. I really do. I might have disagreed with him on some stuff politically. I told you all the truth about my interaction with the Obama administration that was very frustrating. But I think this guy was super smart, and I admired the class that he carried. And I think that you miss that when you kind of see the way things are kind of being done right now. But here's the thing: he said, remember anybody remember back in the day when he said the rising tide will lift all boats? And black people were like, yeah, but it ain't lifting our boat. Well, I think that the what I think maybe we want to sort of do in terms of revisiting that is to realize that the reason the rising tide didn't lift your boat is because that was white people's tide. That tide was for white people, for millionaires. That was the tide that was going to lift other people's boats, but it wasn't going to lift your boat because your boat was in a different little lake. You were in the black people lake. And there was no rising tide in that lake. That lake was flat. The water was sinking. It was toxic, right? So your boat's sinking over here, and so they did rise the tide. I mean, believe me, when I tell you, every president, not just Obama, every president makes somebody rich. Every president has always made somebody rich. George Bush made the oil men rich, among others. Defense contractors got rich under Bush. Bill Clinton, anybody who benefited from NAFTA got rich under Clinton. Private prisons got built under Clinton, so he made those people rich. Uh, let's see, Obama made the bankers rich. First thing he did. First thing he did when he got in office is they got $700 billion to give to the bankers who had caused the financial crisis in the first place. How crazy is that? Too big to fail and yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but really, he made some bankers rich. Trump is making the crypto bros rich. He's making his family rich. He's making the hyperscalers rich, the people investing in AI. Um, he's making investors rich. He's made some of y'all rich. Why? Well, because he's supporting Sam Altman. Sam Altman supports Oklo. A lot of y'all in this room right now, I know for a fact, have made as much as $100,000 owning Oklo stock. Am I lying or am I telling the truth? Give me a yes if you own Oklo stock. How many of y'all own Oklo? I know you own it because even when I know that even when I don't do, I tell you like don't just copy what I do. I tell you what I do, and I know that there are some of you that are going to do it, and I don't blame you, but I just warn you like, hey, just know there's risk. But I told you all about Oklo when it was $8 a share. Now Oklo is $142 a share. Don't you tell me you did not make some money off that if you're an investor. Almost all of you made money off this. I think that stock might be up again today. So every president makes somebody rich. And so my question is, how do we position ourselves so that when the president says the rising tide will lift all boats, we can place our boat in the right water? Or we can make sure that whatever tide is rising, that it benefits us, or that we create a rising tide that will lift our boats. So there's two ways for your boat to rise, in my opinion. And now I'm just processing this. There is the systematic rise of the tide. There is, okay, white folks are rising the tide over there. Let me go put my boat over in that water. They taking care of the investors. Let me go put my boat over there so I can benefit from that. That's what you're doing right now when you're investing in this market. Then there's the other way to rise, which is where all of us systemically, collectively, in aggregate, make plans and we all in aggregate decide, we're going to systematize Black success. It's not going to be a one-off. It's not going to be a Lordy be hallelujah moment where we all sit back and worship one Negro, or we all sit back and get excited about the fairy tale of one person or one family doing well, and the rest of us just sit back and clap. Hercules, Hercules, just sitting back there just clapping for other people. No, it is all of us. It's all of us winning, all of us winning. And I so let's go to my Instagram. I want to since we're on this theme. And by the way, just to remind, let me before I forget, let me give you all that I'm gonna give you direct access to that list on 7 ways to buy gold. Let me just give it to you now before I forget. I sent you all that link where you can sign up and get it, but some of you didn't get it in your email. So I'm gonna literally put it right here in the comments in the chat. So you should see it right there. So if you want to, you want my perspective on different ways you can buy gold to protect yourself for, if you believe the dollar is going to decline, or if you believe the economy is going to get crazy, or if you believe World War III is going to break out next week or something, then buying gold is a good way to protect yourself financially to some extent. Now, if World War III happens, then that's a whole different scenario, right? That's a prepper scenario. That's where you got to have like extra food and stuff. But still, if you see chaos happening in the world, the price of gold tends to rise with chaos. But what's odd is the price of gold has been going up even when there's not chaos. Gold has actually done as well as Bitcoin almost, and it's baffling to some experts. And one day we'll come back and we'll have a conversation about that. All right, so let's go to Instagram real quick. I want to show you all something, and this relates to the theme that I was talking about earlier about just this idea. A couple of themes. One is the false idea that the rising tide lifts all boats. The idea of hero worship, the idea of us sitting back and being spectators when others are actually on elevators, right? And I think that this really connects to something I also want to talk about, which is a blend between celebrity culture and people that are flashy with money. It all connects in my mind. It connects in my mind because one of the mistakes that we make, and I'm so glad the brother asked about the brother that was that made the gasoline out of plastic, is that the idea of sort of celebrating symbolism over systematic substance is something that I think we should really carefully address. I mean, what do I mean by that? I mean that a lot of times we will see one thing, we'll see one celebrity doing well and feel like, oh, black people have made progress. And so I'm the guy who says, where have black people made progress because one black dude was put in a movie? Or we'll see one person like the guy with the invention, and we'll say, oh my God, that's so amazing, that's so awesome. And really, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is an opportunity because maybe we can build an educational process around whatever made him so extraordinary, right? And this actually connects to just the symbolism of sort of having this hero worship, which connects to the black celebrity, which connects to even the ideas like being flashy with money. A lot of times you will see us worshiping one hero, one guy who says, "Look at me, y'all! I have $10 million," and we'll say, "Wow!" And in our minds we're thinking, "Wow!" It's like we have $10 million. And I think that's a flawed way to look at the world. And so what I did, just because I'm just I sometimes I identify as a hilarious asshole. I made this AI video called "Out of Touch Black Celebrities," and I'm gonna show you guys this. And this just made me think about like stupid, goofy things that celebrities do when they completely lose touch with the black community, where they have more in common with a Zionist than they have with black people, or they come back doing weird things that black people don't identify with and understand. Yet we look up to these people. We consider them to be our heroes. So I'm gonna play this for you guys. Give me a yes in the chat if you can hear it. I'm about to play it now. It's on my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. So here it is. It's called Out of Touch Black Celebrities. Here it goes.
Of course, I pro-black. I just dropped my new champagne. Reparations with baby oil.
They keep saying there's no affordable housing, but my pool house has 4 bedrooms.
I do not see why you all do not just buy land. My third island was only 15 million.
I can't relate to struggling. My accountant handles all that. That's why
the police are just doing their job. If you comply, nothing bad will happen.
Black people are just lazy. I mean, I worked hard. If you don't have a mansion with a heated driveway by now, that's on you. Bruh, we don't need black-owned businesses. We just need good businesses like Gucci, Prada, and anyone who gives me a VIP discount.
Okay, so that was my goofy way of illustrating my point. I don't whenever I sometimes I'll get a call out of the blue where some celebrity will want to talk to me, and I think my first question is always like, why? Like, what's the point? And then and then if I do talk to them, I'll say I'll be thinking in my head like, what kind of celebrity are you? Like, are you a person whose ego is out of control, where white people have gassed your head up so much that you think you're better than black people? Are you trying to use me for something? Are you like what are you here for? What's the point? Because I'm not impressed by the fact that you sold 1 million records. I don't care if your book is a bestseller. I know how that works. I don't, I don't care if you're on the top TV show, your album's number one. For all I know, you could have laid on somebody's casting couch and had sex with the right person and got that opportunity. And that's a reality. One thing that people don't know about Hollywood really is a lot of your most famous, respected black actors and actresses, unfortunately, if you look in the background of like who they went through to get to where they are, you'll know that a lot of times some of them just did something as simple as had sex with somebody. You bend over for some dude and let him have his way with you, and next thing you know, you're the biggest star in America. And this happens all the time. This happens all the time. And so one of the mistakes I think that we make from a success, a financial success standpoint is celebrating the wrong people. We celebrate the gaudy materialism. We celebrate the symbolism. We'll celebrate the person who says, "Look at me, I'm on a yacht. Look at me, I gotta look at the car I drive. Look at the money I." And one of the things that I can tell you, and I put this also on my Instagram. I'm gonna share this. I'll just scroll through a couple of things. Oh, sorry. I'll just scroll through a couple of things so you can see it, and then also with given what I said, I want you to watch this video with me one more time with the black celebrities, and I'm gonna scroll through a couple more things that'll make this economic point. So here it goes. Let's see here. Some of you didn't see, or some of you wanted to see it again. So here it goes.
I just dropped my new champagne, reparations with baby oil.
They keep saying there's no affordable housing, but my pool house has 4 bedrooms.
I do not see why you all do not just buy land. My third island was only 15 million.
I can't relate to struggling. My accountant handles all that. That's why
The police are just doing their job. If you comply, nothing bad will happen.
Black people are just lazy. I mean, I worked hard. If you don't have a mansion with a heated driveway by now, that's on you. Bruh, we don't need black-owned businesses. We just need good businesses like Gucci, Prada, and anyone who gives me a VIP discount. So
Okay. And then this is another little thing. This is actually my daughter and I talked about this today. We were talking, she was talking about working and AI and how, she said, "How do you make money if you don't go to work?" And that's when I explained to her that most of the people in America that make the most money don't actually work for the money. They actually can go to sleep and wake up with, a lot of money in their bank account. So one of the things about money is it says here, sleep well knowing your money is still wide awake. And so the reason you want capital is because capital doesn't sleep. Capital works for you all the time. Some of you woke up this morning with more money in your Robinhood investment account, not because you went to work last night, but because you put your money in the right place. The next thing I put up here today was this stock, Hims and Hers Health. Just as a kind of quick side note, I love this stock because you see how first of all, it's gone up 128% this year. That's pretty awesome. But also what's crazy about it is you notice how it's up and down, up and down, up and down. It's not a straight line. And so if you invested in a stock like this and you had conviction, you had a good thesis on why you wanted to invest in the company and you didn't chicken out, then you would make a lot of money, but you could also make a lot of money selling the options along the way. The stocks that let you make the most income from selling the options tend to be stocks that have the most volatility. They have the most up and down, up and down, up and down, where the possibility of anything happening is very, very high. And so because the stock goes up and down, up and down, up and down, it not only gives you a lot of buy-in opportunities at a low cost if you believe in the stock, if you have conviction, but also you can make income along the way selling the options on this stock. So this is one of my most interesting stocks. I've had this stock for a very long time, and I've made a lot of money from it. And a lot of you I know are invested in this company. This is not me endorsing the stock. This is just me sort of sharing a narrative. All right. So the next thing here is I put this up on Instagram, and this is something I want to dig into for a second. It says a man who's flashy with money is trying to convince the world of value that he does not believe he truly has. There are psychology studies that pretty much show that when a person is overly flashy with money, not only is that very dangerous, but it's also indicative. There's a mindset that comes with that, and that mindset I think has to be challenged because for the longest time, the people that control hip hop, not black people don't control hip hop. We know who controls it, mostly white folks and Zionists and stuff like that. They sort of planted in our young men's brains that in order for you to be successful, you not only define your success by how much money you have, but you also want to be flashy and kind of show it off and stuff like that. And I remember Jay-Z and Kanye West, they had a song where one of the verses was, can you see the private jets flying over you? And I think that that was an economically immature and unnecessary statement to just say like, let me show you how I'm better than you, right? And this really creates um, a really unhealthy, very toxic energy, particularly when you talk about black males trying to work together. I told you my biggest challenge when with talking with Kanye West was in Damon Dash too. I told you I talked to these guys a lot. Is like they were constantly trying to position themselves as the alpha in the conversation. Like they were really obsessed with making sure that you know that I am better than you, that I'm more important than you, that I'm more powerful than you, that I'm wealthier than you. And I just that energy just it's oppressive energy. It's like wow, like do do you have to oppress me or compete with me for us to succeed together? Is there space? Is there enough room for collaboration where you can be the king of hip hop? Maybe I'm the king of finance. I don't know, the king of scholars, or I'm King Boyce. I don't even think that way, but let's say I did think that way, right? Isn't there room for both of us to be honored in our own space and still, work together and figure out what the common adversary is, as opposed to it constantly being a competition? It's exhausting. It's freaking exhausting. And this is also bad for relationships and marriages. If you ever want to end your relationships or get a divorce, start competing with your spouse. Just compete. Ladies, if you want to make your man mad and make him want to go sleep with the secretary or whatever, start just really demeaning him and belittling him and disrespecting him and making him feel small. He'll be gone in a minute. Then you won't have to worry about nothing. It'll just be you and your cats. The same thing with men. You got so many men who are so threatened by successful black women, and in most cases, that energy is so misdirected and misguided. That lady is not your competition, man. Let her fly. You got a wife that's smarter than you, then clap for her, cheer for her, support her. She got two master's degrees. You say, go on, babe, go get your master's degree. Hold a birthday party for her and celebrate when she finishes her PhD or whatever it is, right? Like why does celebrating her success somehow affect or harm you in a negative way? It doesn't harm you or affect you in a negative way. It's what it is it's mindset. It's this idea of some sort type of scarcity, or that there's only enough room for one of us to be doing well. And there are so many people. And in fact, let me just tell you, I saw this with Steve Harvey. He was on this show called The Pivot, and Steve Harvey's a wise man, and sometimes he says things that are wise. I didn't think this statement was wise at all. And he talked about how sad he was at the death of his father, and I empathize with that. But then he said to Ryan and the other host, and he said your father is the only man you'll ever meet who wants you to be better than him, to do better than him. And I understand that to a point, right? That yeah, that's what a great father does. He says, "Son, I want you to be better than me," stuff like that. But the problem with that statement, and I don't disagree with it completely, but the problem with that statement was I remember thinking, does everything have to be a competition? If I'm sitting next to my homeboy and he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing, do I have to compare my thing to his thing? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like do you have to compare? If you are living a good life and you have a nice car and a nice house and a nice couch, is it necessary for you to go visit the Joneses across the street and you see their couch and say, "Oh shoot, no, I got to they got the new couch. They got an expensive $10,000 Italian sofa. I need to get me one of those too." No, there is no necessity in that. There is no what you when you behave that way, when you get into a hyper competitive atmosphere with people around you, what you're really speaking about is what's living inside of you. You are not content with you. Their success is a mirror reflecting back on you, and you're seeing yourself as small because you see them as so big, or you see them progressing, and it reminds you that you haven't done the things you need to do. And I can just tell you the most successful people I've ever seen don't compare themselves to other people on a regular basis. Some of them do, but most of them don't. Most truly successful people at a high level, they compete with themselves. They say, how do I just become better than the person I was yesterday? And not only is that more productive in terms of accomplishment, but it'll keep you sane. It'll keep you sane. If you go around in life constantly comparing yourself to other people, you will be exhausted because you're always going to find somebody that's got more money. I don't care how rich you get. There's always somebody that's richer. No matter how tall you are, there's always somebody taller. No matter how pretty you are, there's always somebody cuter. You know, it just it never ends. It never ends. And so you find yourself almost like it reminds me of like trying to drink the ocean. You can't drink the ocean. You're just gonna have a full stomach and to be depressed because you didn't make any progress on your objective. And so that idea, and I think it extends to so many other areas. I mean, I could talk about this all day. Even I don't know if I told you all this, but even with jealousy, I remember when I was 29, I didn't like jealousy. I studied it and tried to understand where it was coming from because I said it's so illogical for me to think that I can keep a woman from ever seeing or being with another man ever in her life or being attracted to another man. That's impossible. There's too many men out here. There's millions of men, you know, and I'm 5'8". So if she likes tall dudes, I'm cooked. I'm done. Right. So I remember thinking, okay, this is bad. But jealousy, if you've ever been really jealous, I mean, come on, admit it. Admit it in the chat. Raise your hand if you've had a time where you were really jealous of somebody, jealous in a relationship, jealous of what somebody else had, what somebody else accomplished. Come on, let's admit that. Let's just be honest. Let's be vulnerable. Okay, come on. Ain't nobody said yes yet. Okay, y'all in here lying. Okay, Richard's honest. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Shirley. Yeah, all of us have been, right? And I was like, man, this is exhausting. You know, just being a hater takes a lot of energy. It's like, you know, and I was like, I don't want to live like that. I don't want. I felt like I was in a prison. I felt like jealousy made me smaller. It made me an uglier version of who I was. And I was like, I got to get this disease out of my body, out of my spirit. How do I get rid of that? And I started thinking, and I was like, you know, I think instead of being jealous of other men, I think I'm probably better off if I simply make myself the best man I can be. That way, when the inevitable reality occurs that somehow she sees another man because she's not blind, um, at least I will be a great alternative that she would have a hard time walking away from. And my wife thinks this is the weirdest thing in the world about me too. Like you know, like I'll tell her, I say, yeah, well, I saw a man looking at you in the grocery store, but of course he looked at you. That means he's got good taste. He knows beautiful women like I do. And I said to her, I said, look, I'm not really trying to compete with other people. I just know that when I'm at my best and I'm the best man I can be, if you did walk away from me, he would have to be a damn good man to pull you away from a man like myself. Right? That literally is the philosophy I think honestly, I apply that to everything I do. I can't like I'm not the smartest person on the planet, but I'm pretty damn smart because I work hard at being smart. And the reason I bring this up is because there are some people who will spend most of more of their energy undermining or attacking others or doing all these things that are not going to work and no time actually working on themselves. If you ever want to really compete in the world and you feel that there's competition and whatever it is you're trying to do, look at yourself first. Look in the mirror first and say, how do I improve this person and make this person the best I can be? Because this constant comparison, not only is it emotionally draining, but it's financially draining as well. You know, you constantly throwing out money because you're trying to dress better than this person and have a better car than that person, have a nicer house than that person. And then you get that house and then you see somebody's got a nicer house than you, then you're like, oh man, I gotta move again, or I gotta spend more money. People will drain themselves financially trying to constantly compete and compare and then that spills over into that economic immaturity of flashiness, which really speaks to when you're flashy with money and define yourself by how much money you have. That unfortunately, according to most psychologists, speaks to a lack of development of who you are as a human being. You know, because you can't walk into a room butt naked with no money in your pocket and still say, you know, I am still somebody. I'm somebody because I'm a good person. I'm somebody because I read a lot of books. I'm somebody because I work really hard, right? You can't do that. You just flash a bunch of money and think that that gives you sort of an instant route to the front of the line. And in some cases, it can. In some cases, flashing money will definitely attract women. If you're looking for women, money will certainly attract that. If you want to make friends, fake friends, financial friends, right? Then money. Everybody wants to be friends with a rich guy. The unfortunate part of that, though, is that you put yourself into this kind of a trap where the thing that you used to attract people to you is the thing that you must maintain in order to keep them with you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like if I say, hey, you know what? I got this money now. You know, I'm big money Boyce. I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna go get me some women. And by showing them how much money I have, well, what kind of women do you think I'm gonna attract? What do you think? Who gonna be the first women to jump out at me? if I start showing my money off. It's going to be strippers, gold diggers, right? And materialistic women, women who have financial deficiencies in their past. Maybe they grew up poor, so they have financial trauma. So they are obsessed with chasing the man with the biggest pockets. And so then I meet this gorgeous woman, woman of my dreams, because she, likes the fact that I have $1 million, and we fall in love, and I want to have kids with her and everything else. But then I lose my money, I lose my job, or whatever. Something happens to my wealth, and then my heart is broken because she leaves. Why? Well, why? Well, because that money was the thing that brought her in, and the money is the thing I have to maintain in many cases to keep her around, right? And so in a way, it's kind of one of these things where I think that how you handle your money, how much you show that to other people is really must be strategic, right? I think that it is not logical to expect that financial security won't matter, though. I think all the studies show that financial security matters a lot, especially to women. But I think that when you are when you're a little too overt with it, it's almost like sexuality, right? Like ladies know that men are always, most men, you know what a lot of men want, right? You know how we think, right? But it's one thing if he knows that the sexuality is somewhere in the relationship versus you leading with the sexuality. Do you understand? Like you showing up like a Cardi B, and the first thing that comes out of your mouth relates to what you can do in the bedroom. That's going to create a different dynamic in the relationship. And I don't even know if young people really even get this. I pray for them. But anyway, one more thing I want to mention to you is a couple more theories on from psychology in terms of flashiness and why people feel a need to be flashy. Number one, a lot of psychologists say that external validation can become a substitute for internal security. So for a lot of people, because they don't know who they are and they're not confident in who they look to the world to tell them who they are. So a lot of times we will do things, we'll show off what we have. So the world will say, you're a successful man. And then you'll say, oh, I must be a successful man because the world said I'm a successful man. And I think that's very dangerous for black people because a lot of that validation comes from white people, your oppressor, because they control these institutions that label you and certify you. And that is something that you have to then go to them in order to obtain. That's why you have black people begging for Grammys and Oscars and all this stuff. And which really, actually, if you look at the history of the Oscars, and if you read a book called An Empire of Their Own, How the Jews Invented Hollywood, it's not anti-Semitic. It's just a great book about the Jewish community and their extraordinary genius in building Hollywood. I had complete admiration for what they accomplished with Hollywood. I do. I don't like everything that's going on in Israel, but my gosh, this book was fascinating. And one thing that they said in the book that was really funny was the people that actually were financially conscious, the people that ran the industry, they basically were like, damn, these actors, they want too much money. They keep asking for pay raises, and we don't want to give them any more money. So they were like, well, what can we give them instead of money that won't cost us anything? They said, oh, let's feed their egos. Let's give them validation. So that's how they created the Oscars. They said, we'll create this stupid award show and give these meaningless little trophies and acknowledge them for certain things and give them validation, and then they'll accept validation instead of money. So the Oscars were created so they could save money. So this is what happens. This is why you got to be really careful, is that when you allow yourself to go through life without doing the work to fill your emotional voids, 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to identify those voids and exploit you. When we send children into the world, black children into the world who are not made whole by the community, who are not told who they are, who are not told you are somebody, who are not given their pride and their self-esteem, then they will spend their lives chasing validation. They will spend their lives making horrific sacrifices just to be acknowledged. Think about how a little girl who doesn't ever get love from her daddy approaches relationships for the rest of her life. She doesn't understand. She don't even know. She figures it out when she's like 60 years old. Like, oh, I was really just chasing all these men because I really didn't get because when I was 4, my daddy left. Right. So ultimately, um, if you are in that category, which all of us are on some level, all of us have work that needs to be done. The more you do the work, the more you won't get played like a jerk. That was bars. I rhymed that on purpose. I did that. Look at that. How impressive was that? Right? Really. But seriously though, the more you do the work, the less people can take advantage of you. the people at the mall can say, "Oh my God, you look so good in that outfit. Here, it's $80," right? And you buy it because you ain't got a compliment from anybody in the longest, and you need compliments to feel like you're attractive. I don't think that that is a good way to get what you need. It reminds me of like how expensive it is to eat out, to like go to restaurants and eat versus doing what your mama told you, which was like to eat at home. Because your mama could, you want to go to Wendy's and spend $25 to get food, and your mama could buy $25 worth of food that lasts for damn near a week, right? And it's so instead of getting what you need food wise outside of the house, see if you can get it inside the house. This is a direct economic concept. The idea of being able to internally produce the thing that other people are going to charge you money for. They charge you money for an education. When you can educate your own kid, you can educate yourself. They charge you money to, if you're hungry and you go to a restaurant, they're going to charge you a lot of money to eat there, but you can cook for yourself. They charge you money for your self-worth and your self-esteem. They zap your soul for that, and you can actually build your self-esteem at home, right? Or you have men that will go around and chase women to fulfill something, right? And maybe there's a better, more efficient way to fulfill that, right? So anyway, let me keep going here. Also, when you talk about being flashy with money, there's something else called impression management theory. Impression management theory says that people project status in order to fill internal voids. So, projection management theory says that if I have internal voids, I'm going to project my status. I'm going to remind you how important I am. Donald Trump probably might be in that category. There's probably about four mental illnesses that he could be diagnosed with. Narcissism might be at the top of the list, I think. But then I think Obama's mental illness to me was I felt like Obama was a sociopath. Not in the violent way, not like psycho, like but sociopaths, from what I understand, I'm not an expert, I have to ask my wife about this, but what sociopaths can do is they can just lie to your face and then not even feel guilty about it. And I almost feel like a lot of politicians will have to be sociopaths. And why do I say that about Barack? Well, because one of the things I remember when I would talk to, I live in Chicago. So I get to hear a lot of the Barack Obama stories before they became Barack and Michelle. I remember hearing about Barack and Michelle back, in the early 2000s when they were like, oh yeah, this is this important power couple. And my wife met Michelle when she was at University of Chicago, and Michelle worked at University of Chicago. And so anyway, and a very nice lady, by the way. And he seems like a nice guy. I lived down the block from him, but I never actually met him. But he lived close enough to my house that I could literally run to his house and be there in 3 minutes, even when I was fat. Like that's how close he lived. And Farrakhan lived on the other side of the, like 2 blocks down. I went to Farrakhan's house several times to see the minister because I love him. I never went to Barack's house because there were guards. There were these police officers blocking everything. Plus, I don't know if he'd even want to talk to me anyway. But anyway, with Barack, it's like one of the stories I would hear consistently is people would say they would either love him, like, oh my God, what a great guy, blah blah blah, or they hated his guts. And the people that hated him would say something like, yeah, he promised me he was gonna do blank blank blank, and then he never followed up. He never did what he was going to say. But he sounded so convincing when he said it. And I was thinking, oh yeah, that's because politicians have to lie, and I think that they have to lie because we want to elect liars. I really believe that. We rather elect people that say what we want to hear than people that tell the truth. So the truth would be, look, I can't do this for you because I can't do everything for everybody all the time. But the reality is that in order for them to get elected at a high level, sometimes they have to play that crazy game. That's why I would never be a good politician. So that's why I put the little false diagnosis of sociopath, because I think that there's something special about people that can just say, hey, yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'll be there next Tuesday. I promise you. And then not follow through at all. Right. And so I think most politicians are probably in the sociopath category, to be honest with you. I think you have to be in America. All right. The good people don't get elected because we crazy and we do this to ourselves. And that's my little 2 cents on that. All right. So let me move on. All right. Before I offend anybody else talking about Barack Obama. All right. I know he's the Lord and Savior for some people, so I don't want to mess that up. All right. So the other thing about being flashy with money is that flashiness can also cover up low self-esteem or identity confusion. That's another thing psychologists say. Also, being flashy with money, there's something related to attachment theory. And attachment theory says that people seek connection through admiration instead of authenticity. So they will do something to make you admire them, and that's their way of connecting with you as opposed to just being who they are, maybe because they don't feel like who they are is enough. And also, also just generally, a lot of psychologists would say that confidence is connected to that as well, right? So if I'm not a confident person, then maybe my money or my status will give me more confidence that I don't actually naturally have. And if you take those things away, then my confidence might be depleted. And I think that that's something to kind of consider as well. So I would say this too, in terms of just being flashy with money. I think it's very dangerous, actually. And it's dangerous because when you flash money, you're drawing a lot of attention, and attention is is it's okay sometimes, but sometimes you don't want too much attention because people that I've noticed that actually have a lot of economic power that are really calling the shots, they don't want anybody to really know what they're doing. They don't really want everybody in the world to be able to sabotage what their plan is or to get in the way of what they're trying to accomplish. So a lot of times, the person who's really the boss doesn't want anybody to know that they're the boss, right? The person who walks around and says, "I'm the boss," look at me, look at me, look at me, is either a person that's immature and they haven't been the boss for very long, or they're really not the boss. They're sort of faking it till you make it. And one place where that fake it till you make it mindset is pretty strong is Atlanta. Atlanta's a trip, boy. Atlanta is hilarious, especially like young people. I was walking down the street one day and I just saw these two like teenagers, like they were shooting a video and they had a Lamborghini they had rented and they were getting out the Lamborghini, showing off the jewels and everything. And I was just cracking up. And I think that's so interesting. I'm like, where the hell did that culture come from? Like, who really taught us to even behave that way? And that's really, really economically immature. And in fact, I still remember the guy went to college with Antoine Walker, the guy that lost $100 million when he went to the NBA. And I remember he came through the hood when he was in the NBA, and they got robbed, right? And the cops were like, that the robbers got, they were like, they got $80,000 in cash and $100,000 worth of jewelry. I said, who carries around $100,000 worth of jewelry? That's crazy. And it was something crazy like that. And you hear that sometimes, right? And I'm like, what in the world? What part of the culture says it even makes sense to have that much jewelry on you anyway? Right now, I get it. They said they took $100,000 worth of stocks and bonds and $200,000 worth of real estate because they stole the deeds of the property. And I get that, but just that idea of all the jewelry and all the money and all the gaudiness, that really is a massive symptom of economic immaturity. That is, I write about that in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. Economic immaturity is when you do things with money that a child might do. Like a child tends to want to spend their money on childish things, right? They give them a bunch of money, they're gonna go buy toys and candy and stuff like that. Also, a child might. Anybody remember when Eddie Murphy did his skit where he was talking about how happy he was when you go outside and you got a cheeseburger and you start dancing? I got a cheeseburger. I got a cheeseburger, right? And that's what that reminds me of. It's like because I have something now, I want everybody to know what I have. And the question I would ask is like, why? Like, what is it inside you that's making you, or is it ice cream? Was it ice cream? I knew it was ice cream, a cheeseburger, or something, right? And we all did the ice cream dance when we were kids, but you don't do that when you grow up, right? When you grow up, first of all, we probably shouldn't be eating ice cream, but when we do, it's not like I run to my wife and I wave it in her face and be like, "Ha ha, girl, look at what I got. I got strawberry sundae. You ain't got none, right? You can't get none because you on the welfare, right?" And so I think that there's something about that has to be addressed because what happens also too, I think, is that it stunts the growth of a lot of our young men. I think a lot of our young men have really stunted growth. I think the women are being harmed by hip hop with all the sexuality. I think that the fact that Cardi B is kind of like this role model for a lot of young women is very scary, or Sexy Red, or whatever it is. I mean, that's saying, "Well, buddy, you're gonna have an interesting life," right? It's gonna be full of like heartbreak and STDs and baby daddy problems and trauma, but whatever. Please proceed. Good luck to you. Don't listen to me. I'm just an old man. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I think for the guys, the economic immaturity, I think, comes from the fact that they're so heavily influenced by hip hop culture, which I think links actually back to the missing father. Like most men who have a strong father, if you ask them like who's your greatest male role model, they'll talk about their dad. A lot of men who didn't have the father in the house or a strong father, they might look at some hip hop artists for guidelines on masculinity, because manhood is not something that you just naturally know. Men are interesting. Men can be mean and rough and tough, and if you don't have a guy that kind of schools you on it and helps you understand it, it's very hard to figure it out. So a lot of the masculine images presented to the young boys are athletes and hip hop artists. And so if you look at some of the behavior makes absolutely no sense. It's a very what's the real tragedy behind it too is that when you have a culture that makes things like murdering somebody not a big deal, like he made me mad, so I pulled out the switches on him or whatever. Um, that's sad to me because they don't learn the fallacy of that approach to life until they have gotten that 60-year prison sentence. So now they got 60 years to think about the things they did when they were 17 years old. And I think that that's horrible. To me, that is hell. That's the closest thing to a living hell imaginable is when you're, 50 years old and you've been in prison since you were 18 because somebody didn't help you understand the gravity of pulling out a gun and killing somebody, right? But think about it. They talk about murdering black people like it ain't nothing. It's just almost like a joke in a way, or like, oh, somebody stepped on your shoe. Of course you got to pull out your gun and shoot him. Which only a teenager who hasn't seen the horrors of prison rape, and all these other things, only a teenager who hasn't been educated would even think that that makes sense. But if you look at how many young people think this way, it's tragic, and it's very costly to the community overall. And let's circle it back to your economics. It kills your economics because men are the primary. Men have a natural deposit of testosterone, which leads them to have the ability to go out and become the hunter, gatherer, provider, protectors that a family needs. Women can do great things, and women have evolved and adapted. Nobody's stronger than black women, but a lot of black women that are strong don't even want to be that strong. They don't want to have to be as strong as men, but they could be, which is great, but a lot don't want to be. They're exhausted by it. And so what happened? Well, because a lot of your strongest, most capable men are in prison or they're hamstrung by mistakes they made when they were young because they got inappropriate guides to masculinity. So that's why there's one guy, the guy he has that big old beard, Mr. Jason something, Jason Wilson or I can't remember his name, but I like him. I like him. He'll do videos and he speaks real appropriately because he's more articulate than I am, and he'll speak about issues of masculinity that I think are appropriate. I think that men need to hear those sorts of things. And really, this guide is essential because you don't get this from the school system because as a little black boy, I remember I would go to school and most of my teachers were white women from the suburbs. They don't know nothing about being a black man. And they think that that their worldview as a woman is natural to me. It was not natural to me. Little girls have an easier time sitting down and being quiet in school than boys do. As a boy, I wanted to jump up, I wanted to fight, I wanted to throw stuff, I wanted to lift things, I wanted to just be active. I didn't want to just sit there and take instructions, right? And so when I didn't do that appropriately, you would get labeled in a certain way, and next thing you know, you're in detention and you're stuck. Um, you're sort of pushed out of you're marginalized, and the marginalization of little black boys happens very early. That's one of the reasons why I think black people should be educating black children. I believe that. I think black women understand black boys better than anybody else, and they love them and they want them to do well. So even when they discipline us, especially if they're also taking the inputs of men as well, not just doing it on their own, but you're disciplining that boy in a certain way, he's going to respond to you in a certain way. And also if you have men around to say, no, it's okay, like let's interpret the behavior differently, I think you will really see a lot of boys really rise and become successful. I know for a fact that if I'd grown up in a school that had mostly black teachers who really cared about me, but were really hard on me, but really cared about me, I would have absolutely flourished. I think I probably would have been based on the kind of kid I would have been the kid that like wanted to go to college at the age of 13 or 14. Like because I wanted to be good at something. I wanted to be great at something. I didn't know what it was. I thought sports was something I could be great at, but track and field is genetic. If you don't have the genetics to run fast, and you can only go so fast. But I would have probably applied that to something else. But I didn't have the guidance. And this is one of the reasons why I think one of the greatest contributions and investments we can make in the community is to really sort of embrace the idea of mentoring black kids, even if they're not your kids. I always say that you don't have to have a child in order to be a parent, and you don't have to be a parent, 100% of the time. Sometimes you could be a parent for 10 minutes. Like okay, we're part of a collective consciousness. We're part of a collective consciousness where all of us want to see black children do well. How many of you agree with that? And give me a yes in the chat. If you just generally want to see black youth succeed, you put a yes in the chat. If you want to see black people be wealthy, family strong, everybody happy, everybody doing well, everybody succeeding, right? I'm in that category, right? So that's a collective consciousness. All the yeses that are coming through the chat right now is an indicator that we're on the same page, right? We all kind of agree, right? Maybe you don't agree with me on everything, but you agree with me on that. We're collected, so we're connected on that. So, right, so that means if I have a child that you see running around acting a fool, or my child is hungry, you're going to feed the child, even though it's not yours. If my child it doesn't understand something and you can explain it to them, you're going to explain it to them because you're like, okay, we're part of the collective consciousness. This is the black baby. This is Boyce's kid. Let me talk to Boyce's kid, right? Or if my child is acting a fool, you'll correct the child. Why? Why? Well, because you're part of that collective consciousness. And I think that the collective consciousness sometimes we lose that. That's why I did the joking video about the out of touch black celebrity because I don't think many black celebrities, many of them are encouraged to disconnect from the collective consciousness, right? They disconnect from the idea of elevating and improving the condition of the black community. So there are things that happen in the black community they care nothing about, right? They don't, they're more connected to whatever's happening in Hollywood or whatever's happening in the Jewish community, right? They'll go, a lot of them will go still, even to this day, will still speak on behalf of Israel and how much they love the Jewish community, but they won't say much about what's happening in terms of black people other than things that might be sanctioned. Like maybe if it's something that the Democratic Party told them they're allowed to say or whatever, right? But for the most part, when it comes to really digging into the root of the issue and really truly fixing it and truly making progress beyond the symbolism, I don't see a lot of celebrities really able or willing to make that sort of a commitment. What I do see is the people making the sacrifice and making the investment are the people that are actually there, the people that are actually in the community, actually dealing with the kids that are going to school every day, teaching the kids, that are the coaches that are coaching the kids, the parents that are raising the kids. Those are the ones who are, when we talk about the rising tide lifting all boats. I respect you because I see you and all of us as the tide, right? This is the tide. And so when we rise the tide, every boat on that water in that body of water is going to rise. So I would say that rather than waiting for the government to raise the tide to lift your boat, we raise the tide. Right? Instead of waiting for capitalism to raise the tide, we raise the tide. Instead of waiting for white people to raise the tide, we raise the tide. And if we raise the tide through collective consciousness, where we elevate ourselves, elevate our children, elevate our families, then all boats that are in that body of water, in that body of collective consciousness, all boats in that collective consciousness will rise as well. When I rise, you rise. When you rise, I rise. When we rise, right? That to me is a beautiful ecosystem. And it ain't got nothing to do with complaining about what white folks are doing. Right. So let's circle back and I want to make sure that you understand this is an economic conversation. I know I went a little bit, I strayed from what appeared to be economics, but because the way my brain works, everything circles back to the economics. So the economics in general, we talked a little bit about, just that idea of being flashy with money and what that means and why being flashy with money is indicative that of the idea that more work needs to be done, right? You have to be, when you receive your money, the biggest thing about wealth is that when you get your money, you want to be a whole, mature, content human being. If you are whole and you're complete and you're mature and you also have a vision and you also have some maybe connection to something meaningful, you have a purpose established, money becomes the most fun thing in the world. Money is amazing in the hands of a person who knows why the hell they're here. If you know your purpose and you understand what money does, like money is a tool to help you fulfill that purpose, then to me, that's the key to an extraordinary amount of power. You become incredibly powerful when you're clear, like, okay, this is my purpose. This is why I'm here. I'm here for the orphanage. I'm here for my babies. I'm here for the community. I'm here for the school, whatever it is. And then when you go out here and you go and you get wealth and you make money. And I had this conversation with my daughter today. I said, you get money and you have a purpose, then what you do is money's the power and that's the plug. So you're plugging, the purpose is like the lamp. So you're plugging the power into the lamp and the light shines brightly after that. What's dangerous is when you have power with no purpose. That's like a bunch of power. That's like a bunch of energy with no target, no nothing, no containers, no control. And do you know what uncontained, uncontrolled energy looks like? Imagine a nuclear power plant with no safeguards to ensure that all that energy isn't directed carefully in where it's going to go. Well, that becomes a nuclear bomb. And nuclear bombs are very destructive. Nuclear power plants are very productive. Nuclear bombs are very destructive. Or think about a rocket. When NASA makes a rocket, rockets contain a tremendous amount of power. Just like money is power, that rocket has power. It comes from the fuel and the ignition and everything else. So when that power is contained, that rocket can go all the way to Mars. But what happens to a rocket? Somebody answer in the chat. What happens to a rocket when the power is not properly contained? When something's wrong, when there's a leaky valve or something's not when it's not complete and when it's not whole, the rocket explodes. It blows up, right? So sometimes you see a wealthy person, they're complete, they're content, they've done the work, they make sure they show up as a whole human being, and then they get a whole bunch of money, and then they go and they just do amazing things. But then you see another person who where they got leaky valves, right? Child undiagnosed, untreated trauma, mental health issues, perhaps a lot of insecurities. We'll give a person like that a bunch of money and a bunch of power. You get, I don't know, maybe you get Cardi B, Donald Trump, um, 50 Cent, right? People with a lot of power that don't know that haven't really thought carefully about how to use that power in a clear and focused and productive way. And I know that might hurt people's feelings to hear it that way, but that's the truth. So fix yourself as you get your money, and then that way you'll be able to really do some things. And Diddy, there we go. Diddy's another example. My God, Diddy's a perfect example. Good Lord, I forgot about him. But it's not just black people, white people too, right? We see it all the time. I told you Trump. I think Trump's an example of that. This man, I followed this man for 35 years, and I never learned to hate him or love him. I just saw him. That's it. I just saw him. And then we became political. Half the country decided they hated him, half the country decided they loved him, and that's what our politics is designed to do. It's built more on hate than it is on love. It's built on division more than unity. So, because their job and their goal is to figure out how to make you hate the adversary. I don't get into any of that. But I can say to you that he's a guy that has a lot of untreated mental health problems that probably aren't so good for it's probably not so great for him to have the amount of power that he has. And you see what he's doing with that power. He's attacking his enemies. He's petty as hell. He's getting revenge on people, right? And so it is what it is. But again, I don't want to offend anybody who voted for Trump. You have the right to vote for whoever you want to. I will never say anything negative about that, but I'm just calling it as I see it. So anyway, with that being said, if you believe in the Black family and you want our families to get stronger, we are hosting a Black Family Conference online this weekend, the weekend of the 10th. Yeah. So if you'd like to join, everybody in here can join for free. Just type the URL in the chat. It's blackfamilyconference.com. That's blackfamilyconference.com. One of the core beliefs that we have in the Black Business School is that if we do not fix the Black family, we will never fix Black wealth. You cannot build wealth without families. There's no community in the history of this earth that's ever been able to do that. So we must fix the Black family, or at least understand what the issue is, so we can approach this in a healthy way and find some way to contextualize the problem so that we can move forward productively to the future. And that's it. That's the last thing I'll say on that, because the economics stems from the family. So blackfamilyconference.com, and I know that not only will there be family related topics covered in the Black Family Conference, but also, of course, generational wealth, legacy, stuff like that. That's important too. All right. So I know a lot of you are thinking about how you can pass wealth to the next generation. That will certainly be covered also. All right. So blackfamilyconference.com. Also, to get a notification when we meet for class, you can text the word morning to the number 87948. So text morning to 87948. I'll send you a link to join us inside the Zoom if you want to come inside the Zoom. And also one more thing too, for those that didn't get it earlier, here's that list on different ways to buy gold. So there is the list right there inside the chat. So if I know that some of you tried to get it from before and it wasn't available, I apologize for that. But here it is now. So if you want to buy gold, there we go. You don't have to go get gold bars in your house. You can get ETFs and stuff like that. So there's some stuff in there for you. All right. So have a good day, everybody. God bless you. Thank